You say my name like words that I made up. You say my name like.
School me on these debates that they be having about your identity as a South African colored person. What does that even mean? Oh, I like that. We keeping that in the interview too.
Shut up, man.
I like when they talk from the back and say we can't. I like that. I like that. That's good. That's even better. All right, Tyla.
Wasn't that bad, was it? No. Good.
I'm good. Why you guys?
We got some more.
Because the
label.
I want you to know this for other interviews, right? When they go in and they tell like the interviewers what to say and what not to say, this and that. That's what makes it awkward.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not. Are you awkward?
No.
I'm not awkward.
You want to see all the questions they told us not to ask?
Yo, leave her alone, man. Stop
This
it.
one must leave the room.
Stop it. My goodness.
This one must go.
It's the worst ever working with him. I work with him every day.
Yeah.
Tyla is a 20-year-old South African singer, and there is this weird controversy that's bubbling up around her racial identity, and I don't know why. See, Tyla identifies as colored, which is not a new thing. It's not some new trendy identity. And anyone who knows anything about South African racial classifications realize that basically a person who is colored usually are people with a blended heritage. A lot of them have, of course, African ancestry, but a lot of times they have Asian ancestry from India, sometimes some British ancestry or Dutch ancestry. Essentially, these people are mixed race. And generally, these people have been mixing for multiple generations, not just your traditional biracial with two different monoracial parents. The natural question is, why is this news? And I'm going to tell you why it's news. Because every couple of months, it seems like there's some type of story that goes viral regarding black people and black identity and who's black and who's not black and who can call themselves black. And it's starting to become annoying and repetitive, and these conversations are usually ran by people who aren't qualified to have these type of conversations. They lack the range, they lack the education, and they really lack an interest in these topics. They would prefer to react to them and try to make some money off the algorithm.
Their nose, and suddenly people are like, this person's black. I really think it's really important that we know who really is black, and to also center the people who can't be anything else but black. And also too, even discussions around Tyla. Tyla is an artist from South Africa, and she's colored. And in South Africa, that is their own racial category. And when people see her, they want so badly to call her black. But I feel like a lot of times people want to call people black who they find desirable. So because they find Tyla desirable, it helps them to see that she's black. But she's someone who is making it very clear that she's mixed race, and that she's making it very clear that she's colored. And that's okay that she's making it clear that she's colored. Because we can definitely imagine that there are people who are 100% black and can't be anything else but black. Tyla is somebody who benefits from featureism, texturism, colorism, but somehow with all those three things, people still want to be able to call her black. And I think it's because we've skewed the idea of what black is. And because blackness just keeps getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And if we always center the people who can dip in and out, Central C decided on a random Tuesday, I'm gonna let you guys know I'm Asian. Because he has nothing to lose. Like, his career has been built off of the ambiguity. If someone can jump in and out of blackness, then why are we centering people who can go in and out?
I'm not dismissing the issues regarding black identity. I don't necessarily believe that anybody, just because they have African ancestry, should be able to speak for and identify as a black person, especially if we're talking about politics. But we're not talking about politics. We're talking about a pop singer who sang a little song about water. That's it. I think a lot of the people who are focusing on Tyla right now, they have different agendas. Some of these people are just interested in keeping a black division. Who's light skinned, who's dark skinned, who's mixed, who's black, who's this, who's that. Those people enjoy the mess that they create. And they use this for engagement porn, ways to move up the algorithm, to get more eyes on their channels or their social media platforms or whatever they're trying to promote. Very rarely do people come from an honest angle when they're talking about mixed race identity. And is the Breakfast Club the appropriate place to have this conversation? I mean, Charlamagne asked her a question that I'm sure he already had the answer. You mean to tell me that Charlamagne, at his big old age, knew nothing about apartheid?
Apartheid in South Africa crumbled after Nelson Mandela walked to freedom, but black people suffered decades of government-backed injustice before it did. Apartheid really began in 1948, but separating black Africans from the white minority had long been a policy aim. Laws made white people officially superior, and the large black majority faced discrimination in every aspect of their lives. Living, doing business or owning land in white areas was banned. There were separate public facilities, transport and schools. Interracial marriage was banned. Many had no right to citizenship and were regarded as aliens in major cities. Instead, they were made citizens of Bantustans, homelands scattered throughout South Africa. But resistance grew. In 1960, a huge peaceful protest against past laws ended in a massacre at Sharpeville. 69 people were killed. The deaths galvanized opposition, radicalizing liberation movements like the ANC.
There are many people who feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence.
Open conflict erupted in the 1980s, with anti-apartheid activists frequently shot at, beaten or arrested. Mass protests were firmly put down. But little by little, the apartheid establishment crumbled. After gradual reform, Nelson Mandela, in prison since not long after Sharpeville, was set free in 1990. 4 years later, he was elected as South Africa's first black president. Apartheid had ended.
Of course he did. And the fact that he did know about these things and completely played stupid shows that he was trying to have an intellectually dishonest conversation and was probably trying to set her up. And when he noticed that Tyla summoned her team to get her out of that tight spot, Charlamagne could have opened the door by saying, hey, I know a little bit about the colored people of South Africa. I know the history of apartheid. Maybe you could shed a little bit of light on it so people who are not from South Africa can get a better understanding about your experience and about you. Chances are she would have been a little bit more open-minded to having that conversation if it was set up that way. Also, Tyla's like 21. She's some kid. Like, to put all this at her feet at a Breakfast Club interview, that's a lot. I mean, how would you feel if every time Beyonce went outside of the country during her Destiny's Child years, some random white DJ would grill her about her ethnicity? It's not to say that a young Beyonce didn't experience her issues with colorism and weird interviews. International DJs and television hosts, for the most part, were respectful to Beyonce and didn't drill her about questions regarding colorism and her ethnicity. There were a lot of dumb comments online regarding this whole Tyla situation, and I could post a bunch of them, but I don't see any value in doing that, so let's just look at this one. A Twitter user said, why can't she just say she's mixed and leave it at that? We could all go back and trace ourselves back to different ethnicities. I think she's just being attention seeking. Well, Pumpkin, you're not that smart, and here's why. Tyla is not telling you that you can't identify as whatever the hell you want to identify as, nor is she saying that others don't have a unique, blended ethnic background. Within her country, specifically South Africa, they have an identity called colored. And though I understand in the United States the term colored has a very checkered past, but I would like for you guys to think about this. The term colored was a more politically correct word from the hard R word that was more common during that time period. But I digress. I mean, I think the real issue is that people don't know shit about history, which is fine. I get it. Everybody doesn't like history, and sometimes looking at some of this stuff can bum you out. But if you're too lazy to pick up a book, and you're too lazy to watch a documentary, and you're too lazy to go on Wikipedia, you should be too lazy to send that damn tweet. You know what? This doesn't happen all the time. And I think some of this is a regional situation because people from big cities like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, you're not surprised when you see people who look like Tyla. They're all over the place. I think a lot of these people who make these type of tweets, you live in environments that look pretty monochromatic. Let's just leave it at that since people are very sensitive. And this whole notion that people like Tyla are pushing black women out of spaces, are you kidding me? Coco Jones ain't worried about no Tyla. Even a person like Normani, she's doing her own thing. She's not really worried about Tyla. See, the people who are worried about Tyla are people like Tinashe. You know, the people that kind of look like her, that make similar music. See, they're worried about their spot being replaced by a person like Tyla. Stop creating this weird division where, you know, all the black people in the diaspora just are going at it. Nobody trusts each other and everyone's concerned about their position in front of white daddy. Everybody's not on that.
Now, Tyla, just because they were setting you up doesn't mean you couldn't have answered that question significantly better than you did. And this is a big issue with a lot of these new artists. Back in the day, they would spend months on what's called artist development, teaching them how to answer interview questions, how to present themselves in front of the media, hell, even how to eat in public. It sounds kind of ridiculous, but this is important, especially when you are a celebrity. I know people think it's refreshing to be your real self, but sometimes your real self hasn't developed enough. And in fairness, the girl's only like 22, 21, something like that. So I'm gonna give her a lot of grace. But as far as the artist development stuff, yeah, that's all up for you. You need to work on that, Tyla. Because what you should have said was, you know, I recognize that in the United States, the word colored has a completely different history. And I'm not trying to minimize its history or its importance. But when I came to do this interview, I was under the impression that we were going to talk about music and things that I'm doing with my career. It's almost like if you were to take an American artist and they're there to talk about their new music, and then they're expected to talk about the history of Jim Crow. It's not that these things aren't important, it's just this may not be the most appropriate time to talk about these things. How about this? You invite me back, I'll even bring a student from the University of South Africa and we can have those conversations about colonization, the history of apartheid, all the different ethnicities in South Africa. And we could probably learn something not only about South Africa, but the similarities, the civil rights movement that existed in the 1950s and still kind of exists today. Simple as that. You don't have to answer the question. You still sort of sound like you know what you're talking about, but you're sliding out of that situation. So Tyla, I'm gonna need you to work on your media training. You're probably gonna get hit with a lot more questions like this, especially if you're trying to navigate in the urban R&B market. It just is what it is. And it's unfortunate that your team didn't tell you that before you were put in this situation.